My phone never buzzes at 6, not unless someone's gone or something's stolen. This morning, it buzzed. A wedding photo slid out to my screen by itself. White dress, battery lights, a craft store boutonniere, and a caption that read, "Our perfect day, family complete." Except the mother wasn't in the frame. "Did you get married?" I texted. 3 dots. Stop. 3 dots. "Yeah, Mama, yesterday." By noon, I'd learned a new sentence. Attempted quitclaim deed. The notary stamp? Expired. The signature? Not mine. People think just paperwork means no consequences, but paper is how a person disappears. So I did what mothers do when love gets used like a credit line. I opened the trust. I called the lawyer. 30-day close, cash, no contingencies. And when the door finally opened, I handed my daughter an envelope. 60 days, a check for a fresh start, and one sentence she'd never heard from me spoken this quiet: "Use them well." This isn't a revenge story. It's a boundary story. It's how I sold the house they call mine and bought my peace back. Stay with me, because before the keys change hands, a clerk, a mother-in-law, and a stranger's stamp are about to teach a master class in what family really means when the county seal is watching. Inside the mail slot, something thumped. A white envelope hung crooked, like it wasn't sure it belonged here. I slid it out with 2 fingers. It was from the HOA in Pearland, not the Heights. The handwriting on the front was a machine's. I tore it with my thumbnail and unfolded the notice. "Exterior modification pending permit," it said. "Window replacement, Hawthorne Drive." 2 signatures were listed on an addendum. In the faint dot matrix light that machines think is good enough, Marcus Reed and Lena Carter. A third line, lighter, thinner, almost shy, said, "Grantor approval required. Trustee." I stood so fast my chair foot caught on the rug. I didn't curse. I don't need words when I have air. I grabbed my purse, slid on the sandals I keep by the door, checked for the key behind Ray's picture without thinking about it, and walked out into the bright heat that Houston throws on you like a dare. The county clerk's office has a smell I cannot describe properly unless you have stood in it on the day you need mercy. Paper, an old toner, lukewarm coffee someone forgot to drink, a hint of floor cleaner that failed to convince the tile. The woman at the desk wore her braid like a rope and held her face like someone who has seen every version of the same bad movie and still watches for the scene where people tell the truth. "What can I do for you?" she asked. "I want to check instruments filed against the Carter Family Living Trust property on Hawthorne Drive," I said, giving her the parcel ID from memory, because I write down what matters until it moves in. She clicked and hummed and clicked. 1 second. Another click. "Mrs. Carter, there was an attempted quitclaim deed submitted last week. It didn't record." The word "attempted" sat down in my chest without asking. "Why not?" I asked. "Because the grantor's signature didn't match the specimen on file," she said, not looking at me because she knew it would be unkind, "and because someone tried to notarize with a commission that expired in May." She lowered her voice. "We flagged it and sent a notice to the address on the trust." "Who submitted it?" I asked. She slid a copy across the glass. The names were where you expect them to be. I read them twice. People think a name on the form is a little thing. It is not. It is a person revealing themselves with a pen. "Does the person who tried, do they get in trouble?" I asked, even though I knew the answer before she spoke. "Only if someone wants them to," she said softly. "Most times families work it out or bury it until it eats them." I thanked her. I folded the paper in half, then in fourths, then into something so small it felt like a seed in my fist. I stood at the door for a second longer than anyone needs to stand at any door and let my eyes adjust to the kind of light that tells the truth whether you asked or not. On the bus home, I watched people watch their phones the way they watch windows when they've been told the view matters. A boy practiced a presentation to no one, mouth moving, hands chopping the air, his earbuds making him brave. A woman scrolled through pictures of babies until her face softened and the day slipped off one shoulder. A man held a bouquet that was either an apology or a celebration. I wondered which one lands on a person's table first and how long it takes to tell the difference. I understood something on that ride that felt like standing up in a moving car. I was done being careful to be included. I had learned the shape of my own name on a deed. I had learned that saying nothing is a kind of invitation for other people's plans to sit in your chair. Sometimes a mother has to teach her child what a boundary looks like on paper. I got off 2 stops early and walked the last blocks. The sun was a hot hand on the back of my neck. I didn't mind. It reminded me I still lived in this body, and it still was mine. My attorney's office belonged to a man named Stephen Sloan. He had a tie too red and the jaw of someone who chewed ice when he was thinking. Miss Darlene sent me to him years ago when the neighbor tried to fence 4 inches of our yard, and he fixed it with a letter and a map and a tone that said, "Be serious." "Mrs. Carter," he said, standing to shake my hand, "what brings you in?" "I want to sell a house, and I want to do it clean and quick." He nodded like men nod when they are about to pull a tool they like using. "Tell me the basics." I told him: the trust, the daughter, the quitclaim that didn't stick, the wedding photo I wasn't in. I didn't say family complete. Some words don't need to be repeated. They already did their damage. He listened without interrupting the way a good plumber listens to the story of your pipes, even though he knows the leak the second he steps in the kitchen. When I finished, he tapped his pen against a legal pad, then set the pen down like it was a promise he'd keep. "You want to sell to punish her?" he asked, making sure the question wouldn't slip between us later. "I want to sell because I'm done being used." The answer surprised me with how simple it was on the table. "Fair," he said. He flipped to a blank page. "Your trust, your title, your right. We'll do a 30-day close, no contingencies if we can find a cash buyer. We'll honor any occupant with a clear timeline. You'll be generous but firm." Generous but firm, I repeated, liking the shape of it in my mouth. He slid a standard notice form across the desk. 60 days is customary, 90 if you're feeling kind. You set terms, not them.
60 is kind, I said. He made a note in block letters. "One more thing. You want the proceeds to sit idle, or do you have plans?" "I have plans," I said. And for the first time in 2 days, I heard joy come out of my own mouth. I walked home with a folder under my arm and stopped at the little grocery on the corner where the produce section is always a dare. I bought a bag of red potatoes because Ray used to say a house feels different when you boil something. I bought a dozen eggs and some scallions and a lemon that smelled like the promise of something. I cooked and ate and washed the dishes in the same sink where I once washed Lena's hair in a rinsing cup when she was too small to make it through a bath without thinking the drain would take her toes. The next morning, a woman named Miriam Alvarez walked the bungalow on Hawthorne Drive. She was small and quiet and wore flats that said she had places to be before noon. She ran her palm along the window frames the way a mother checks a child's forehead for fever. She stood in the living room and looked up, like she could already see where the new light would land. "I'll take it," she said, not wasting mine or hers. "Full cash, 30 days. You keep your 60-day occupancy clause." "Why so fast?" I asked. "Because I have learned to ask even when the answer sits right there." "Because rents are rising," she said, "and this one can hold a single mother and a toddler by October." "Why single mothers?" I asked. though I already loved her for saying it plain. Because when my son was 2, she said, I needed a landlord with a heart instead of a calculator, and I couldn't find one. I can be one. We shook hands like two people who understood the same weather. She took a picture of the front step to text to someone. I unlocked the back gate so she could see the little run of dirt where nothing grows, not even mint, and she smiled like she liked a challenge. I liked her for that. That afternoon, I put the notice in a large manila envelope and drove to Hawthorne Drive. I hadn't been inside in months. The succulents I bought were alive, because of course they were. The mat at the door said welcome-ish, because of course it did. The living room had that furniture that thinks it is mid-century but was born last year. The coffee table had a ring nobody cared to scrub. I knocked. I heard the fast footfall I used to love, and heard it different. She opened the door with her hair piled up and her cheeks bare. She was still my baby, even when she was not. "Mama," she said, surprised. And for a second, her eyes softened like a summer when we ate snow cones in the car because I didn't want syrup on the couch. "I came to drop something off," I said. "Now? We just got back. We were going to call today." "I know." I held the envelope out. "This is formal. I wanted to hand it to you, not mail it." She took it like it might bite. Marcus drifted in from the hallway with no shirt and a towel round his neck, the way men enter spaces when they think their rent is invisible. "What's that?" he asked, like he had the right to be handed anything in my hand. I let Lena open it. I watched her lips move as she read the words. Notice to occupant. 60 days to vacate. Sale pending. Trustee contact. Her face went the way faces go when a person realizes the train they were riding has pulled into a different station than they expected. She looked up at me like a child who broke something but doesn't yet know what it was worth. "You're selling my house?" Her voice broke on the wrong word. "I'm selling the house," I said. I kept my voice plain. "It's in my trust. I let you live here. I paid the taxes and the AC man. I bought this roof twice. It's time for me to use what I built." Marcus took a step forward like size matters. "You can't just kick us out." "I didn't," I said. "I gave you 60 days. That's 2 rent cycles for most people. There's a cashier's check inside that envelope for first and last month's rent anywhere you choose that isn't foolish." "Why are you doing this?" Lena asked, and it was the kind of plea a woman makes when the world's rules finally apply to her. "Because you told the world your family was complete without me," I said. I didn't raise my voice. Quiet is a tool when you remember to use it. "And because someone tried to file a quitclaim deed last week with a dead notary and your name on the line where mine belongs, and I am not going to stand in my kitchen while my own child lets a stranger teach her how to erase me." She swallowed. She looked at Marcus, and he looked at the wall, because the wall is easier than a mother who knows what a notary commission should look like. "That wasn't," he started. "Don't lie to your own face," I said. "You're young, not clever." Lena's eyes filled, and the part of me that wipes tears moved, but I kept my hands where they were. Love without boundaries is a habit that breaks both sides. 60 days, I said again, because sometimes repetition is mercy. Use them well. I walked out because you have to let some scenes finish without watching them do it. I sat in my car with the windows cracked because the heat doesn't care about your feelings, and let my breath even out. A neighbor waved because she thought I was there to bring brownies. I waved back because I am still from a place where people wave. The phone rang as soon as I put the car in drive. Unknown number. I answered because sometimes you have to hear a voice to know what kind of day you're going to have. "This is Vanessa Reed," she said, calm like a lake that hides a gator. "I wanted to touch base about some developments." "Hello, Vanessa," I said. "You calling as family or as counsel?" "As concerned family," she said, choosing the lie that felt better in her mouth. "Lena is upset.
Marcus is too. We all are. This feels precipitous. The dictionary word won't make the deed different. I waited a long time to act, longer than people advise. Let's be reasonable, she said. They need stability. They're newlyweds. They needed honesty, too. They skipped that part. You're punishing them for not involving you in a small ceremony. I am protecting assets I built when no one was watching from people who started watching when they thought they could redirect the flow. She was quiet. Money is a language everyone speaks. There are consequences, she said finally, like she was handing me a brochure. There are, I agreed, which is why I sent a check. She paused long enough to count to 5. We can help them secure a new place. I hope you do. Y'all managed a wedding without me. You can manage this too. I hung up because I have learned to stop conversations before they start. I drove home on back streets and watched a man fix a tire with a friend holding a phone flashlight in broad daylight. It warmed me for no good reason. People still help each other in the heat.
That night, I took the ledger out again and flipped to the blank page. The pen felt heavier. I wrote a list that made me feel taller. Change, trust, successor. Meet with Sloan Friday about Will. Choose a number that is a gift and not a leash. Make a plan that feeds other women besides the one who forgot who made the first pot. I slept hard. I dreamed about Ray's laugh at a baseball game and woke up with tears on my neck I didn't apologize for to anyone. The days arranged themselves. Papers clicked into place. I walked into Harris County Federal Credit Union and sat with a man named Dell who talked to me like I had built a ship rather than a savings account. "You've been disciplined," he said, tilting the screen so I could see what he saw. "You've got options now, Mrs. Carter." "I like that word," I said. Options. We moved some things, set up a money market that would feed me gently without chewing the principal, and earmarked a portion that sat there like it was waiting for a name. I knew the name, but I wanted to say it out loud in a room where sound mattered. At home, I pulled out a Rubbermaid bin from under my bed. It held things you keep when you don't know why you keep them. Old church bulletins with notes I wanted to remember, a photo strip of Lena with blue lips from a snow cone, a Famex square from a dress my mother wore the year she taught me to sew a straight line. I held each one until it warmed in my palm. I put the ones that still told the truth back and let the others go. The phone stayed busy with numbers that didn't ask permission. I let it. I answered a few. I said no 3 times in one day and felt like I had invented a new muscle. Miriam's offer letter came. We set a closing date that felt like a clean turn of a calendar page. Sloan slid papers across his desk with a speed that told me he cared about the right things. "You doing okay?" he asked once when I paused longer than a pen should rest on a line. "I'm doing right," I said. "Okay can come later." I went to church on a Wednesday night because sometimes you need a quiet room with a cross and the word hymn written on a laminated page. I lit a candle because there are things we still do because they help us remember what we promised ourselves when we were braver. I didn't ask for Lena back. I asked for my own spine to stay where it was. On a Friday afternoon, the title company wired the funds to the trust. Miriam wired hers. Sloan called with the confirmation, and I sat on my porch with the summer trying to butter me and watched a cloud try to be a bird and settle for a cloud. I wrote a cashier's check for a portion of the proceeds to Bayou Grace Foundation because it felt like a name that fit in my mouth. It wasn't born on paper yet, but it was born in me, and sometimes that is where a thing begins and has the best chance to live. Bayou Grace became a kitchen before it became a nonprofit number. I had keys to a fellowship hall on the east side because a church secretary trusts me more than some deacons. We borrowed 6 folding tables, 2 microwaves with knobs that still worked, and a whiteboard someone rolled in from a Sunday school room that hadn't seen chalk since phones got smarter than teenagers. The first night, 6 women sat in metal chairs and drank sweet tea from paper cups while a woman named Patrice showed us how to make a grocery list that feeds a family of 3 for $68 when chicken thighs are on sale. We passed around a binder of coupons like it was a hymnal. A girl named Ari, 20, baby on her chest, no baby daddy in sight, asked me, "Miss Evelyn, why are you doing this? I mean, what do you get out of it?" I thought about the manila envelope. I thought about the quitclaim deed. I thought about a plant that used to look like a stick on my windowsill and now reached for light I had not expected to find. I said peace, simply, and the right kind of noise. They laughed. The way women laugh when they're tired and safe. It sounded like my mother's kitchen in Port Arthur when the storm passed and the radio said we could open the windows. Vanessa didn't call again. Gerald sent a text that said no hard feelings. That is how men apologize without moving furniture. Marcus got a job he called temporary and wore a safety vest home. Lena found an apartment with a balcony too small for a chair, but big enough for a basil plant. She sent me a picture of the contract and the keys on a ring with a wooden bead that spelled home like a dare. She invited me over on a Sunday. I said I would check my calendar and meant it. I brought potato salad and left it in a bowl she could keep. She showed me a drawer with a folder labeled important papers. Don't play. The lease was inside. The insurance policy, a copy of their marriage certificate, creased and honest. She had underlined the part with her name like it mattered. It did.
"Proud of you," I said, leaning against her counter that pretended to be marble and didn't have to be. She grinned. "We're learning." "Classes every day," I said. She nodded like she believed me. Moving day for Hawthorne came like moving days always do. Too hot, too soon, too many boxes with the wrong labels and the right ones missing. I was there at 8 with breakfast tacos and a smile I had to practice in the car. The men who came to carry furniture wore the same January gym shirts to August work and had arms that made everything look lighter. Marcus shook my hand like we were neighbors, not relatives who had nearly written me off a property description. He carried boxes. He didn't look at me much. That was okay. New respects sometimes arise without eye contact. At noon, the rooms were empty enough to echo. Lena stood in the doorway and took a picture with her phone. An empty room, a square of light on the floor, the ghost of their couch ring. "Put a caption," I said. "Make it true." She typed. She showed me. "Sometimes you leave with less so you can grow into more." "That'll do," I said. She posted it. We locked the door. I turned in the keys to the title company because Miriam's crew had already staged paint cans in the garage like a promise to the next woman. I didn't cry. I have learned not all endings ask for that. Some ask for a good pen and a calendar. The next week, Lena showed up at my house without calling. Old habits die loud. She stood on my porch like a woman who had walked a long way in shoes that were too pretty. "Can we talk?" she asked. "We can," I said, pushing the screen open with my hip, "but I won't be yelled at in my own home." We sat at the kitchen table with the scratch. She looked at the plant. It was flourishing now in a way it hadn't when I babysat it with hope. "Mama, I messed up," she said. "Which part?" I asked gently. "The part where you didn't invite me to your wedding, or the part where you tried to erase me from the county record?" She closed her eyes. "Marcus said, 'Let's not put your mouth on anyone else's script,'" I said. "Use your own words." She nodded. I was embarrassed. The reads are different. I didn't want to make you feel small, so I made you absent instead. I didn't rush to fill the silence. Silence is where truth catches its breath. "I did sign the HOA thing," she said. "I didn't understand the grantor part. The deed, Marcus said it was just paperwork. His dad knew someone. I didn't think it mattered because it's all family, right? Family doesn't mean free, I said. Family means we keep one another from doing the worst version of a thing we think we can get away with. Her eyes filled. I let my hand move and set it on the table where she could put hers on top if she wanted. She did. We sat like that, mother and daughter, with the word only pulled out between us like a splinter. Did you sell it because you hate me? I sold it because I love me, and because I need you to love me as a person, not as a reservoir. She looked at our hands. What about us? We can build new, I said, but not in a house that taught you I would always foot the bill for your courage. What does new look like?
It looks like you and Marcus finding a place you can afford without drawing a map to my bank. It looks like Sunday dinners when you ask what time works for me. It looks like you deciding what kind of woman you want to be and me not being an alibi for anything less. She nodded very small. Can you come see our new apartment when we find one? If I'm invited, I said, and if my calendar allows. She almost smiled. You have a calendar now? I always did, I said. I just kept erasing my own plans to sharpen yours. She looked at the plant and touched a leaf with one finger. It looks like you and Marcus finding a place you can afford without drawing a map to my bank. It looks like Sunday dinners when you ask what time works for me. It looks like you deciding what kind of woman you want to be and me not being an alibi for anything less. She nodded very small. Can you come see our new apartment when we find one? If I'm invited, I said, and if my calendar allows. She almost smiled. You have a calendar now? I always did, I said. I just kept erasing my own plans to sharpen yours. She looked at the plant and touched a leaf with one finger. It looked like this thing looked like a stick. It did, I said. It learned. We took a drive that Sunday evening down Allen Parkway with the windows up because mosquitoes vote too. The skyline tried to be dramatic and succeeded. I told her a story I had not told her before about the winter she was 6 and got bronchitis twice and how I almost sold my wedding ring to pay for the bigger inhaler because the copay made me pick between groceries and breath. Miss Darlene loaned me $200 and a pot of soup instead, and I paid her back in 3 Fridays. I didn't tell you then because I didn't want you to think everything you got cost me something I could hold in my hand. But it did, and I would do it again tomorrow. She stared out at the bayou, green and pretending to be peaceful. I thought being refined meant being less like you, she said, like shaving off the parts that feel too much or talk too loud or know too many ways to stretch a dollar. I thought the Reeds had the map and I just needed to follow it. But their map didn't have you on it. You can draw your own, I said. I want to, she said. Will you look at it when I'm done? I'll look at it while you draw. I won't hold your hand unless you ask. She laughed, small and real. Deal. I am not going to tell you we became best friends in a week. I'm not going to tell you Marcus turned into a man who writes thank you notes and fixes sinks in his spare time. He did start showing up with boxes when he said he would. He did stop using the words just paperwork like they were a lullaby. He shook my hand when he saw me and held it a beat longer than the first time. That counts for something. Bayou Grace kept growing. The kitchen got a second-hand stove that heats unevenly unless you talk to it nice. We learned how to make rice that holds the next day and beans that don't pretend to be fancy and still feel like a hug. Patrice taught us how to stretch ground turkey into 3 meals no one complains about.
A volunteer CPA from church named Trevor sat at a table with me and the papers and helped me fill out forms for the government so the people who want to help could do it in a way that made sense. "You're good at this," he said, surprised. "I've been a treasurer of other people's luck for 30 years. It's time I write some of it down with my own name on top." We formed a little board the way people do when they want to be responsible. Miss Darlene said yes because she likes to tell people no with love. Miriam said yes because she is serious in the right way. Patrice said yes because she knows what it means to stand in front of a group of women and say, "We got you," without your voice shaking. On Tuesday nights, we had lessons that were part recipe, part survival, part church without a sermon. We learned to read a lease like it is a story. We practiced how to say, "I need a maintenance request verified by email," without apologizing. We looked up notary commissions on a state website, and I said the sentence, "Not all stamps are authority," and 6 women wrote it down. Once, a woman came anonymous and left with her name back in her pocket. Her ex had taken more than he was owed, but he hadn't taken the part of her that fights for her kids' field trip. We sat around a folding table and gave her $10 bills until she had enough to pay the fee without asking anyone who would put a string on it. She cried into a napkin like it was a new kind of cloth. Fall came the way fall does here, slowly, reluctantly, a day with cool air like a favor. The letter came on a cool day. It was typed, too polite, and from an attorney who was proud of his watermark. It had Lena's name on it and mine. It asked if Bayou Grace would accept a donation from the Reeds in honor of family reconciliation. I sat with it a long time. Then I wrote back with my favorite pen and said we accept donations with gratitude, not apologies with packaging. I told them they could come serve on Tuesday if they wanted to see what reconciliation looks like when it's wearing an apron. Nobody came that Tuesday. That was fine. The door's open. I don't keep score. I keep ledgers.
On a Sunday in November, Lena asked if she could make the mac and cheese. She brought it over in a foil pan, and it was dry. We ate it anyway because love salts the food. She took the leftovers home and texted me later. Marcus said it's better the second day. Most real things are, I replied. December asked for lights and patience. At the Bayou Grace potluck, we put a gift wrapping station on the back table with paper that didn't match and a basket of tape that stuck to the wrong side. Ari wrapped a plastic dinosaur like a professional and smiled so big I thought her mouth might forget how to be sad. I found a note in the donations jar that said, "You gave me a reason to be seen." It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. One night, Lena called breathless from a bus stop. "Mama, I need to tell you something." "Are you safe?" I asked before I breathed again. "Yes, we are." The word "we" isn't always the worst word. "I'm pregnant," she said. "I found out last week. I didn't know how to say it because of everything. I want to do this right." I closed my eyes for a second because sometimes your body takes the news before your brain does. I looked at the plant. It had outgrown its pot and was leaning toward the light like it had a schedule. I opened my eyes. "Congratulations," I said, and I meant it. "How are you feeling?" "Scared," she said. "Excited." "Both." "That's a good recipe," I said. "Come by tomorrow if you want to. I'll make soup." "I want to," she said. "Can Marcus come?" "If he wants soup," I said. They came. He brought flowers that looked like they were picked from a picture, but they were flowers, and he handed them to me like he understood something he didn't have words for. We sat. We talked. I told them where the cheap diapers live on the bottom shelf of the store where nobody shops, and how to sign up for the program at the clinic that gives you a case if you fill out a form that isn't complicated, but feels like it is if you are tired. I didn't offer money. I offered maps. In January, Bayou Grace had a night where 3 women built an IKEA shelf like it was a team sport. Miriam brought pizza cut into squares because the circles ran out. We laughed the kind of laugh where parts of you shake you forgot were still there. The shelf leaned a little when we finished. We leaned back at it until it learned. There are lessons everywhere when you run out of excuses. On a Monday in February, I stood at the kitchen window and watched rain break itself against the glass. The world was a grayscale that gets inside your clothes. The doorbell rang, and a man in a suit showed me his badge like he needed to feel official. "I'm serving a notice," he said. My heart did a small wrong thing until I read the paper. It was for the neighbor 2 houses down. I thanked him for doing a job nobody likes to do, and shut the door and breathed like a person who still has the right to be relieved. Lena and I took a long drive to the coast one Saturday because the weather said we could. We talked about names that don't sound like labels and how she wants a job that lets her be home at dinner. We ate shrimp from a paper basket on a pier and watched a pelican fold itself into an arrow and become an ocean question mark. "Do you think I'll be a good mother?" she asked, looking more at the water than at me. "You will be the kind of mother you decide to be on the days that aren't holidays. That's what counts." "What kind were you?" she asked. "The kind who said yes too much until no learned how to say itself. The kind who loved you with everything I had, and then a little I didn't, and it took me too long to learn that running out of me doesn't help you be you." She nodded. "I'm glad you sold the house," she said, and we both looked at each other because we knew that sentence took a lot of stairs to climb. "Me too," I said. Spring in Houston is a rumor that sometimes comes true. Bayou Grace added a baby shelf with diapers and wipes and soft blankets that smelled like a store when you open them and like a home when you wash them. We did a class on car seats with a woman from the fire station who cried when we gave her a thank you note because apparently nobody writes those to people who save lives. They just clap and go home. We started a little scholarship for certification classes because sometimes the difference between minimum wage and almost enough is 12 hours in a room with a test at the end and a certificate you can laminate. Lena's belly grew the way bellies do, slow until it isn't. She and Marcus sent me a picture of a crib they put together without arguing, which to me is a miracle in any language. She asked me to come over and show her how to fold the tiny shirts so they don't get lost in the drawer. I showed her. I left a bar of soap in her bathroom that smells like lemons and honesty. In June, I got a letter from a lawyer that had none of the words I feared and 2 I didn't expect: gratitude and recognition. It was from Lena. It explained why she had not told me, using sentences that tried to carry more weight than they could hold. It said she was learning that excluding the person who held you doesn't make you lighter. It said she was sorry in a way that did not beg and did not perform. I put that letter in the ledger not because it was money, but because it deposited something in me that had been overdrawn. On a Tuesday, Marcus showed up at Bayou Grace in work clothes and asked if we needed shelves hung. He had a drill and patience and let 3 toddlers watch him measure without snapping once. He looked at me with a face I hadn't seen on him before. It looked like a man trying. I gave him a bottle of water and a smile that said I saw it. Lena gave birth on a bright morning in July when the sky looked like a clean shirt. She texted me at 5. By 7, I was in a waiting room that smelled like possibility and sanitizer. Marcus paced. I sat. I prayed the kind of prayer that is just a long exhale with a name in the middle. When she cried out, and then the baby cried out, and then everything was the right kind of loud, I let my head touch the back of the chair and thanked every woman who had ever put a hand on my shoulder in a grocery store line when I looked like I needed to sit down. They named her Naomi. She had a little dimple that showed up whenever she thought about smiling. The nurse placed her in my arms, and I met a new part of my heart I didn't know I had been keeping empty. I did not cry in a way that needed a tissue. I cried in a way that watered a plant. "Family," Lena whispered, and looked at me first when she said it. "Family revised," I said. I'm supposed to tell you that everything was perfect after that. It wasn't. Babies don't care about your story arc. They sleep like they don't want to be accused of laziness and scream like they're getting paid by the minute. There were nights when Lena called and said she couldn't do it, and I said, yes, you can, and came anyway with soup and a shirt I didn't mind getting spit up on. There were afternoons when Marcus forgot to pick up something he was supposed to, and I had to let the universe tell him instead of my text. There were Sundays when Vanessa brought over a casserole and a carefully folded opinion, and I had to put my lips together so I would not salt the room with words I didn't need to say. Gerald bounced the baby like he had done it before and made a sound in his throat that wasn't sorry, but wasn't not sorry. One evening, Naomi fell asleep on my chest while the ceiling fan counted for us. Lena washed bottles in the kitchen like a person washing away a year and a half of pretending not to need help. Marcus took the trash out without being told. The window showed a little piece of sky that was trying out a new color. I thought then about a picture I deleted and a phrase that hurt me so clean I can still taste it. Family complete. They weren't wrong. They were just early. 4 months later, on a morning when the air decided to be cool without asking permission, my phone rang at 8. "Good morning," Lena said. I could hear a bus somewhere, a neighbor's dog, the sound of a life that is a second chance. "Morning, baby." "I'm headed to work," she said. "Guess what? I got a promotion." "I guessed," I said. "How?" "You sounded taller." She was quiet a moment. "Mama?" "Yes." "Thank you for not letting me be the worst version of myself." I took a breath. "Thank you for not letting me be the smallest version of mine." We kept the line open until we ran out of things we didn't need to say. When we hung up, I opened the ledger to a new page and wrote 2 words I did not plan to write this year. Family. Revised. I underlined it once. After that, I put on my shoes. Tuesdays don't care about your poetry. There were groceries to buy for Bayou Grace and a woman named Tasha who just left a man who liked the sound of his own anger more than he liked the smell of his own child. She needed a new set of knives and a safe place to put them. That's the kind of shopping list that makes sense to me now. The plant on the windowsill had finally outgrown its pot. I slid my fingers around the roots and felt how they had learned the shape of the space I gave them and were ready for more. I turned the soil. I set it in a bigger clay bowl a neighbor left on my steps and wiped the rim with a cloth, like you do when you respect a thing you almost threw away once because you thought it would never be pretty. It sat there, green and reaching, and didn't say thank you in any language. It didn't have to. The room already knew. People ask me sometimes, in the comments, because I tell parts of this on the internet where strangers become a crowd, if I regret selling the house. I tell them a house is boards and paper until someone treats it like a person. I tell them I sold a building and kept my word. I tell them I would do it again tomorrow, but I didn't have to. Sometimes I get messages from unknown numbers that I know are from someone who thinks they know the whole story from a picture. They say I was harsh. They say I was soft. They say I taught my daughter a lesson she could have learned cheaper. I answer the way you answer a person on a porch who wants to sell you something you didn't order. Kind. Short. True. I did not buy my daughter's dignity. I bought my own back. This is not a fairy tale. It is something better. It is a woman who decided she could be happy without a courtroom apology. It is a daughter who learned that the words "I'm sorry" don't turn a key on their own. You still have to reach for the knob and open the door. It is a little girl named Naomi who will grow up hearing her mother say no without cringing and her grandmother say yes without disappearing. Bayou Grace turned 1 the same week Naomi did. We made a cake and frosted it with something too sweet and loved it anyway. The banner above the kitchen pass-through fell halfway through the party, and we laughed and fixed it with tape that didn't match. I looked around the room at women who had walked in thinking they were one thing and walked out with a handful of names: chef, tenant, applicant, voter, friend. I don't end this with a lesson. I end it with the list, because that is how I keep myself honest. I learned that the first time you say no to someone you love, it will sound like a siren inside you. It will quiet. Keep talking. I learned that a deed in a trust is not just paper. It is a boundary with a county seal. I learned that some people will call your peace petty because it does not feed them anymore. I learned that money is a language and I can speak it without apologizing. I learned that selling a house can feel like setting a table. I learned that my daughter can learn things without me and still wants me to look at her work. I learned that I am not a reservoir. I am a river. I move. I choose the banks. If you are listening from Houston or from anywhere people are remade by heat, tell me what you outgrew that saved you. If you want more stories like this, there is a little button somewhere that keeps the lights on in a kitchen where a woman can put her hands on a cutting board and remember who she is. Either way, I am here next week with another life I learned how to live the long way. There are other stories waiting for you. Pick the one that feels a little too close. I will meet you there. I keep the ledger open on my table now, not because I am afraid of forgetting, but because I like the sound of a pen on paper when my name is the one writing it. I like that a new page is every day. I like that every page is mine. When the morning comes, I pour coffee into the chipped blue mug, and it tastes like a truth I can stand on. I look at the plant and the light on the floor and the picture of Ray that I never move from the shelf, even when the shelf looked too small for that much love. I say good morning to a house that holds me, not a house I hold up. I check my calendar and my heart and my little stack of envelopes with names of people who need a ride and a list and a reason. I put on my shoes. I lock the door. I take my keys because the doors I open now are mine. I step into the heat and let it tell me I am still here. And for the first time in a very long time, when I say the word family, it answers back.